over to YouTube, everybody. Oh boy. Thank you for that.
Investing involves risk and investments may lose value. Brokerage and investment advisory services by Goldman Sachs and Company, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC. Lending and deposits products provided by Goldman Sachs Bank.
Let me bring up the numbers.
30 seconds.
No time. So, but hey, everybody.
Staples Connect has
Uh-oh, gotta turn my phone down. But I'm gonna call you later, Steve.
And now,
But we can
select shipping
talk a little junk.
bubble roll and premium shipping boxes.
All right, sounds good to me.
UPS Express shipping services. Explore what's new at your local Staples store or Staples.
Because something you said cracked me up, and I have to vent a little bit.
Okay, let's do it.
Oh my gosh, something you said made me go, you gotta be joking.
We can change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. Where is the year gone, everybody? Love it, love it, love it. It's gonna have a high of 71 degrees here in Chicago today, partly cloudy, and a high of 74 degrees in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I'm coming to you from the WCPT station, WCPT 820. It's the largest progressive talk radio station in the country. Please tell everybody about us. Tell everybody about AM 950 Radio, my home station in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the voice of progressive Minnesota. If you want to hear progressive voices, we're not going to not call ourselves mainstream because we are the mainstream. We really are. We're progressive, and that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot more news. You know, on my show, I do less opining, and you got to know how I feel, but I want to give you some facts so you can decide for yourself. How about that? So I want you to settle down and join my Morning Stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. That's right. Meet us over there. And of course, we're streaming live on WCPT820.com and AM950radio.com. And I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763 WCPT. We're going to be talking about Rahm Emanuel once again today because I think it's important for us to understand that his confirmation hearing to become ambassador to Japan, which is one of the most plum assignments that can be given in any administration, one of the most powerful nations on earth, and it would just, it's a game changer. It's a game changer for anyone who becomes the ambassador. The hearing is going to be held on the 7th anniversary of the murder of Laquan Mcdonald. I want that to settle in for you. It was bad enough when it was announced that he was the nominee, and many people, progressives, moderates, a lot of people remember how the killing of Laquan Mcdonald and the cover-up of his murder, how it impacted people, not just in Chicago, but everywhere. That was enough, but to hold the hearing on the anniversary of this boy's murder is just a little bit too much, and we need to talk about that today. 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. And of course, we're going to be talking about General Colin Powell, Secretary Colin Powell, the first Black Secretary of State, first Black Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He broke a lot of ground, was a decent man. Even when you had political disagreements with him, they were never personal. He was just a really wonderful, wonderful man. And he made his transition yesterday. He's been with us so long, it's just hard to imagine a world without him in it, at least on this mortal plane. But he made his transition, and he made his transition as he had been battling cancer and Parkinson's due to complications from COVID. He and his wife had COVID. His wife is apparently, she's coping with it very well, but he did die. So we want to talk with Dr. Deborah Holden, noted epidemiologist, and Dr. Shanina Knighton about that, because many of you have a lot of concerns. People like Lorraine and I have parents who have Parkinson's. And so that's something that's concerning. Older parents, older people in our lives who are vulnerable. There are a lot of questions that we have. We want to know about the effectiveness of the vaccines and all of that. So we're going to be answering those questions in just a few minutes, and of course getting good news from the brilliant teaching pastor from Salem Baptist Church, Reverend Stephen Thurston. So let's get to some of these headlines today, everybody. I already told you it's going to be a nice warm day here in Chicago and in Minneapolis, St. Paul. 71 and 74 degrees will be the high respectively. The Dow closed down 36 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 124 points, and the S&P 500 closed up 15 points. Well, in baseball, wow. The Red Sox are on a tear, everybody. They are hitting grand slams. You know, these 4-run homers, unbelievable. They had another one last night, and they were triumphant over the Astros 12-3. They'll be facing off against the Astros once again today, and Atlanta will be facing the Dodgers. And if you're a fan of football, the Titans, well, it was a high-scoring game last night. The Titans 34, the Bills 31. Chance the Rapper will be speaking at today's Wnba Sky Championship Parade and Rally. It's going to be exciting, everybody. There's going to be a lot of guest speakers, and they are going to have a parade from the Wintrust Arena to downtown and a rally in Millennium Park. The festivities will begin at 11 o'clock. Let's get down there and support our WNBA Sky. So excited for those young women and for the city of Chicago. They have brought home a championship to us that we have not had in 2 decades, everybody. Yay, Sky, everybody. Capitol riot. The House committee investigating the January 6th Capitol riot will discuss a contempt report today about former Trump ally and advisor Steve Bannon. The report released yesterday details how Bannon evaded the committee's subpoena request and could be used to set up a vote to hold Bannon in criminal contempt for not complying. The minimum that would, if he is found guilty, he would have to serve at least 1 month in prison, maybe as much as a year. We'll see how all of that goes. What do you think? And as we're looking at the coronavirus, everybody, which is on everyone's mind every day, vaccine opposition is causing division everywhere, according to this CNN report. From schools to police forces, more than a third of Chicago's police officers, more than 3,000, have defied a deadline to report their vaccination status. That means about 4,500 officers are now at risk of being placed on a no-pay status soon. In Miami, a private school is making children who receive the shot stay home for 30 days. There's just a lot of different information out here. So what do you think? And here comes this news. Governor Northam from Virginia, that's right. He's a leader of Virginia's fight against the pandemic. He's had long COVID, he says, for a year. Wow. Remember they closed the governor's mansion in Georgia? Well, he's been battling COVID. His sense of smell, there is just a lot that he's dealing with. We have to talk with Dr. Deborah Verholden about long COVID and what all of that means, and mixing these vaccines, because we're hearing a lot of very interesting information about that today. U.S. billionaires became $2.1 trillion richer in the 19 months of the pandemic. Now, everybody else fell through the floor. But American billionaires grew in number and expanded their collective fortunes by $2.1 trillion since the pandemic. What do you think about that? A 70% surge in wealth among the nation's richest individuals since March of 2020. How is it that they got richer and we got poorer? You tell me. Well, Joe Manchin is at it again. Progressives have responded with outrage, according to this Common Dreams report, following Sunday night's report that Democrat Senator Joe Manchin has told the White House that he would only support prolonging the expanded child tax credit, a key component of his party's Build Back Better reconciliation bill, if it includes a work requirement and limits benefits to households with annual incomes under $60,000. Wow, what do you think about that? No limit on wealth, but a limit on what the working poor are going to get. Wow, so what do you think about that, everybody? And of course, we are looking at the Ahmaud Arbery trial. We're going to be talking with C.K. Hoffler about that trial as it continues to go forward, because we want to know what is going to happen. Of course, as you remember last year, February of 2020, he was jogging and 3 white men decided to, have a citizen's arrest. And they killed him. And it was caught on tape by someone who was following the guys who actually shot him. Unbelievable. So we're going to see what the takeaways are. We're going to continue to follow the Ahmaud Arbery case because it just matters. It matters not just to people in Georgia, Pastor Stephen Thurston. I think this is a case of great import for everybody everywhere. Like you said, you went to college in Georgia. I used to visit when I was in college. And Georgia is much more than Atlanta. Like Illinois,
So much
Chicago, Chicago doesn't. Illinois has a whole different culture. I went to see my great aunt when she was transitioning in the south suburbs, and I went to a little restaurant. And do you know they were playing country and western music? I said, "Is that Hank Williams? Is that Patsy Cline? What?" Whoa! I'm not mad because I'm fans. I'm a fan of their music. But it was just interesting because it was a culture. Because when I walked into the restaurant, yes, I did get stares. And I was just looking, and I said, I wonder if they know that my great aunt is a black woman. So I got to, seriously, so I had to shift. Because she was in a little facility out there. And I had to shift because I said, well, they might not know. So I'm just going to be someone who's visiting. You know what I'm saying?
Understood, yes.
Look, we have to play a lot of roles. just
A lot of code switching.
just to make a lot of code switching. I said, oh man, what is going on out here? But we've got some good news, and of course we're thinking about Colin Powell today. What a shock that was yesterday. Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Oh my goodness. But I know you've got some good news for us today, so let's get right to it.
Let's talk about it. I want to deal with when things go wrong in our lives. Because, as we hear the headlines on a daily basis, it just seems like so much is going wrong all around us, and then even in our own circumstances in life. Let's look at a particular scenario. You hit the snooze button one too many times, and now you're running late. Trying to multitask, you burn your breakfast. You didn't make it to the store yesterday, so there are no more food options in the refrigerator now. As you pull up to the office, when you're slated to give the most important presentation of your career, you spill coffee down the front of your shirt as you're trying to exit the vehicle. When you get into the office, you discover that the admin failed to reserve the main conference room. And now it's booked. So you have to move to a smaller room without the AV equipment that you require for your presentation. It's then that you notice that the client's name is misspelled in several places on the handouts. And out the corner of your eye, you notice the boss and the client walking towards the conference room. And Santita, they're 15 minutes early. Without much time left on the clock to make it all good before the presentation begins, it seems that everything that could go wrong went wrong. So what are you going to do? Somebody can relate to this situation I just spelled out. Look, in situations and moments like this, here's what I want you to remember. Here's the good news that you need to hold on to. Number one, you're still alive. So slow down and breathe. As long as the grass is growing below your feet and not over your head, you can overcome any challenge. And because you're alive, you can find a way to use that stain on your shirt as part of your presentation. I know you got the creativity in you. Because you are alive, you can adjust the room setting and find a way to make it work. Because you are alive, you can fix the glitch on the handouts. Fact of the matter is, you only need to redo the copies that will be given to the client. Everybody else on the team, they'll get over it. You all can laugh about it later at dinner as you celebrate the victory. Because you're still alive, you can find a way to overcome any potential disaster. Second thing I want you to hold on to is that it could be worse. In the moment, you might forget that at least you have a refrigerator and at least there was some food in it when you opened that door. You might forget that you have this job that many people don't have and that you have earned the respect and honor of representing your organization before this important client. Somebody determined that you're valuable enough, skilled enough, qualified enough, and that you would be able to best represent the organization well in this particular moment. And so in reality, things aren't ideal, but it's not as bad as it could be. Number three, You are about to receive an education in overcoming the challenges that you're now facing. You're about to learn about your real integrity. And no, I'm not talking about integrity in the sense of honesty. For example, I fly airplanes on a regular basis. And I often talk about the integrity of an airplane. And when speaking of the integrity of an airplane, I'm talking about it staying together and performing well under intense pressure in the air. In a situation like this, your mettle is about to be tested. And while it likely scares you, truth is, you'll come through. And when that happens, you'll learn what you have underneath the hood. Then the next time a seemingly pressure-filled situation presents itself, you'll find a way to overcome it and win because you already know that you can. You've been tried and tested before. During these times in life, when everything seems to be going wrong, note that is rarely the whole story, and rarely is it a totally true story. In the midst of all that's going wrong, there are things that are actually going right. And so what I want you to do is look for those things. Now, they may be tough to see because it's easy for our minds to get stuck on the disaster at hand. But it's in finding what's going right that we'll find the encouragement that in the end, everything will actually be all right. That's our time today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. I needed that. I needed that because sometimes things do come in on you and you are saying, wait a minute. I mean, and you and I both can relate because we're, just full disclosure, we're close. We're very close off air.
Yes.
And we're both very intense people. Very, very intense
And
people and perfectionists. And sometimes that cannot be a good thing, right? Because my father said, honey, you've got to be prepared. My father's been like a great coach for me. He said, baby, wait, everything doesn't have to line up like that. He said, and in life, guess what? It won't.
That's not.
So I want you to be able to relate. I want you to be able to work it out when all conditions are not perfect. He said, when they're not in a lab, Santita. He said, lab, baby, it's not. And you're right. You have to count all of your blessings, and they're surrounding us today. I mean, we woke up not running out your house, not running out the building. No fire, just you're warm. Yeah, it's just God bless you, and thank you for that. Thank you, because we need that reminder. Pastor Stephen Thurston, everybody. Are you going to be preaching this Sunday?
I'm preaching this Sunday.
Okay.
At 11 o'clock at the Salem Baptist Church of Chicago. You can catch us on all media platforms. And if you're in the Chicago area, WJYS television station 57.
Amen, amen, amen. Stay right here because, this is a topic I think that'll be of some interest to you. We're talking with Dr. Deborah Holden, brilliant epidemiologist. She comes out of Johns Hopkins, of course. But she has been the Michigan State University brought her to their medical school to be their associate dean of public health. She is constructing their school of public health, and we can't think of anyone more brilliant or more qualified to do that. And there's just so much going on. Before we talk about Colin Powell, we'll be doing that at the bottom of the hour. We're beginning to hear more about boosters, Dr. Verholden. And there's the discussion that we'll be able to mix brands, if you will. If you got the Pfizer, you'll be able to get the Moderna, But it's interesting. They don't put J&J in the mix. They're saying that Pfizer and Moderna use mRNA technology. J&J does not. Could you explain that?
Yeah, sure. Good morning.
Good morning.
They're built on two different. They're built on two different types of technology. Pfizer and Moderna are the new technology that we've all heard about, called an mRNA vaccine. That's different than any vaccine that exists on the market at present. Again, it was a new technology being brought to market, but it was not new to science. It had been under development and being worked on in a laboratory for more than a decade before the COVID-19 pandemic. So they operate different ways. The mRNA vaccine gives your body just that one little piece of the viral molecule, the mRNA, messenger RNA, which is the instructions that your body needs to make the virus. Our mRNA-based vaccines only give your body the instructions to make the spike protein, those little spikes that you see on that coronavirus molecule, right? It's round and it's got these little spikes sticking off of it. The mRNA is giving your body the instructions to make those little spikes. Your body then makes the spikes, and then it will build an immune response to those spikes. Those spikes are like keys, and they unlock your cell and let the whole viral molecule in. So we are trying to help your body get a running start to be able to identify the viral molecule, fight it off before that key can unlock the cell and let it in. Pfizer and Moderna work that way. The other vaccine is a completely different type of vaccine that works on the more standardized adenovirus vaccine technology. So it would be kind of like, you know, if you go to the gym, and me and my kids always joke about this because we were going to the gym, and guys rotate. Oh, today they're doing legs, or today they're doing arms. Mm-hmm. Well, if your goal is to beef up your legs, you got to work on your legs. You don't, do arms on leg day, right? You do your legs. Well, these vaccines target specific aspects of your immune response to the virus. So if you were to get a one-shot booster or a third dose from Pfizer when what you got as a foundation was J&J, it wouldn't be strengthening the thing that the J&J virus did for your immune system with respect to COVID anyway. It wouldn't be the same thing. So you wouldn't be boosting the impact of that vaccine. You'd be adding another type of response. And one shot, though, won't get it. You would actually need two. So you can't mix and match. You can only mix and match, I believe, what we'll find out by type of vaccine. Not brand, but by type.
Okay.
So I'm not surprised that you can mix and mingle with the mRNA vaccine. But I don't imagine we'll get to the point where they will want you mixing across the type of vaccine. Quite the contrary. If you get a new type, then you'll just have to get fully vaccinated with that type.
Well, but that's why, as we go to this break, that needs to be explained. That's not been explained fully, because we just hear names. We don't hear types, right? Yeah. And some people did a little digging, wanted the J&J because they didn't know enough. mRNA took them out a little bit too far. They didn't really understand it. I understand that because we're not in your space. We don't know that it's been in development for decades and all of that. So, stay right there because a lot of people have a lot of questions about Colin Powell and his Secretary Powell and his particular case. Of course, we were all, taken aback and saddened by the death of this man who's been described as a titan of American life, and he has been that. 84 years of age. We always thought he'd be with us, but that is not what we're designed to do. But no, not many of us knew that he was struggling with Parkinson's. Not many of us knew that he had cancer. He'd been dealing with that for 2 years, and he was fully vaccinated. And it's very interesting that he was fully vaccinated and he died from complications due to COVID-19. What does all of that mean? What does all of that mean? I know, Lorraine, you're going to be listening very closely, as do I, because Lorraine's mother's got Parkinson's. We exchange notes all the time. My father's got Parkinson's. So you kind of worry, right? What does this mean? Did the vaccine, did it impact the Parkinson's? Or did the Parkinson's or the cancer treatment? That's what some speculation is, that maybe because he had cancer, his immune system was further depressed. He'd been treated for that. And maybe that's why the vaccines didn't work as well. I don't know. You all have a lot of questions. I want you to call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. If you want to text me at that number, GWC Injury Lawyers gives you that opportunity. It's the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about Secretary Colin Powell. God rest his soul. Back in just a minute. Renee, why don't you call in? Hey, morning, Dave. And Joyce, everybody, if you can, please, join Carissa over on YouTube on the Santita Jackson Show page, everybody. Please, we want to beef up those numbers. And I want to thank you for helping us to do that over the past month. Joyce said, Dr. Furholden, she had the Pfizer today and she's going to get her booster. All right, she's giving us 5 smiles. All right, girly girl. And Daryl said, I don't trust any of these vaccines at all going in his body. We hear you, Daryl. We just want to create a forum where you can talk. And if you ever want to talk to Dr. Verholden or Dr. Knighton or anyone else Dr. Verholden brings to us, please do that, because she's here to answer your questions, to help you to wend your way through all of this information, and a lot of misinformation out here, and a lot of information that we're still not getting.
Dr. Knighton's on the line.
Okay, Dr. Knighton. Dr. Deborah Verholden brought you into us.
Hey, Dr. Deb.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, look, I'm gonna be with my mentor later this morning or this afternoon.
Are you really? What?
Well, not in person, but virtually. Look, in her element.
Oh, wait a minute, on the meeting.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And maybe we'll see India.
Oh, that's
She made a debut on our webinar last week. People loved it.
It was too sweet. But she was handling it. She was managing us and her. But you couldn't get baby India away from her. I said, now, wait a minute. Whose baby is this?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my father said that happened to him. Well, when I was born, I guess. He said, my grandmother's raised holy blankety blank when they found out I was coming. He said, then we had to, he said, they thought about you before you got here, and then they fought over you once you got here. We had to go and get you back from them. Bless their hearts. Oh, my grandmama's up in glory right now. Praise God. Hey, T.O., you know what? T.O., I need you to call in today. Call in today, T.O., because we're talking about Rahm Emanuel, because I'd heard that you were a little under the weather. So I want you to call in, T.O. Okay? Call in. We're going to have Reverend Acree. We're going to have Del Marie Cobb and Jeff Cohen. So, T.O., I want you to call in, okay? Joyce, you are so sweet to me every day. I appreciate you. You are beautiful. Everyone is. Linda, hey, sweetie. Hey. I'm going to send you, T.O., T.O., I want you to call in today. I mean, because I'm so through about them holding the hearings for Rahm Emanuel's confirmation to be the ambassador to Japan. And he is, my goodness, what is he? They're going to do it on the anniversary of the killing of Laquan Mcdonald. Now, that's the reason that he got pushed out of office. Oh, I mean, you just can't make this stuff up, you guys. It's too much. Too much. Too much. So, T.O., I just sent you these numbers. And so it's 7. I want you to call in. Okay? So.
It's 25 seconds.
Okay, thank you, sweetie. Okay. All right, ladies, here we go. If you can, Tio, because I know you could be busy today, but if you can, call in. Gary, hey, how you doing? Everybody, please.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. At the top of the hour, we're going to be talking about Rahm Emanuel's confirmation vote, which will be held on the 7th anniversary of the killing of Laquan Mcdonald. Even as we have the Wnba Sky Parade, we're very, very excited to celebrate. They're bringing a world championship to Chicago for the first time in more than 20 years. We still need to look at this particular case. How did this man get the nomination in the first place? And what about holding this hearing on the anniversary of Laquan Mcdonald's murder? Colin Powell, military leader, first Black U.S. Secretary of State, first Black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a registered Republican, but he was really transpartisan for so many of us. Indeed, he came out in 2008 and said, history and The measure of this man compels me to support then Senator Barack Obama. Just a really someone who was known to be uh, someone who was known to be fair. Of course, he had some challenges to his record, as we've been hearing. But you know what? Let us let him rest in peace at this moment. He just made his transition yesterday. At least that's the way I try to do things. So uh, many of us didn't know that he had been struggling with multiple myeloma over the past couple of years. Many of us did not know that he had Parkinson's. And almost none of us knew that he had COVID-19. When the announcement that he had made his transition was made, immediately they said that, and his family said in their Facebook post that he had been fully vaccinated. But many people then said, okay, he was fully vaccinated and he died from complications due to COVID. How could that be? So let's talk about that, because there's a Washington Post article that goes into a lot of detail, at least for us laypersons. And this is the headline. Colin Powell had been treated for a cancer that severely impairs the immune system, lowering coronavirus vaccine effectiveness. So what do you think about that? Was it was it the COVID-19 vaccines that killed him? Was it the multiple myeloma? Was it the Parkinson's? Does this mean that the vaccines are not as effective? We have a lot of questions and they need to be answered. They need to be answered. Dr. Deborah Holden, what are we looking at in this case?
Well, based on what I saw, he was at high risk for complications from COVID. The reason that the third shot has been authorized for people who are immunocompromised is because their immune systems don't quite give that same robust response to the vaccine that people who are not immunocompromised give. And so the goal is to give them as much support as possible in being able to fight off COVID. And the thing I always sort of remind people of is if you were going to get COVID, you'd rather get COVID vaccinated than unvaccinated. That is just absolutely the case. Your body will have a much better chance if you're vaccinated than if you're unvaccinated in fighting off the virus. And so, unfortunately, Brother Powell, had some pre-existing health conditions that put him at extreme risk for a bad outcome from COVID or from complications of COVID. And, he succumbed to those complications. But, the vaccine is not is not perfect. It's not going to, reduce anybody's chances down to zero, but it will give you a much better chance than being unvaccinated.
So you're saying that, because some people had questions. They question whether, okay, if I've got these underlying conditions, particularly something as serious as cancer and Parkinson's, is it worth it for me to take the COVID-19 vaccine?
If I had cancer or Parkinson's, I would absolutely. If I had any, I got the vaccine without those things. A part of my concern was, as I started to see the average age of death go down, as I started to see hospitalizations in younger populations, that was like a real wake-up call for me, And then as I started to have more and more experiences in my own life of people who had contracted COVID, and it made no sense to me why some people were okay and some people were really struggling, and I just thought, man, this is there's so much that we don't know about this, and in my own risk benefit analysis, when I weighed it out, I was like, I'd much rather get the vaccine than contract COVID and be unvaccinated. That's the decision ultimately that I made for myself, because I watched people who were my age and even a little bit younger who were otherwise healthy get hospitalized for COVID. People talked to me afterwards and shared about how scared they were with the difficulty breathing at night, afraid to go to sleep, that they were going to, not wake up, or die in their sleep. And I just thought, I don't want to be in that situation. And so, it became a much easier, choice for me. But I think if you have those other conditions, I think those are the people who really need to consider getting vaccinated, because they are at greater risk for complications from COVID.
Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. Many of you have a lot of issues. You have a lot of questions about this case, and I think it's an opportunity for us to talk. Dr. Deborah Verholden and Dr. Shanina Knighton, registered nurse, research scholar from Case Western Reserve University. Indeed, she's an infection preventionist. And it seems to me that, having Parkinson's and having cancer, the secretary was at a lot of risk, and I think he was under treatment, I would assume, for two very serious illnesses. How with all the medicines that I'm assuming that he was taking to treat cancer, to treat Parkinson's, did the vaccine impact him do we know enough to know how the vaccine impacted maybe even those medicines? Because if you take if I go to the dentist, they want to know if I've taken Tylenol or if I've taken aspirin, right? Because they're like, we need to know this before we go on with this procedure. What did you make of all of this? Because I didn't know that his health was that he was meeting so many health challenges, Dr. Knighton.
So that's the thing, and this is not me speaking from the perspective of a medical professional because, again, we know that HIPAA protects a lot of information that we don't know. So there's a lot that we don't know about his health just based off of what the media is sharing. But when we're talking about his diagnoses, whether we're looking at Parkinson's, whether we're looking at cancer, and just thinking about medications, that can reduce the response to the vaccine, that is absolutely a possibility. That's been something that's been talked about in the media. That's also been something that, scientifically has been expressed. And just as Dr. Deb mentioned, there is still so much that we don't know. But that is a statement that has been made multiple times, is that the drugs, taking medications, certain medications, can reduce the effectiveness or the longevity of the actual vaccine that is being taken. I think the other piece of it is that I find so disheartening is that right now we're in such a polarized world that his family felt the need to tell the public that he was vaccinated so that way their family would not get attacked and say, oh, well, that's because of, his status, quote unquote, because, things can get we've turned science into political science at points. And so, I felt bad that they had to disclose that information in order for their family to not get attacked and, essentially say that he was doing what was recommended. So more so than anything, I send my condolences to them, but it is absolutely making sure you are talking to your provider and asking about the latest science as it comes down to the medications that you're on and the possibility of them not working effectively. It's interesting, New York Times put out an article maybe about 2 weeks ago, and they actually presented some data from a study that was showing that children have a better chance of not having symptoms from COVID than a vaccinated adult that's over the age of 65. But we have to remember that older adults have something what's called polypharmacy, which means that they are on multiple medications. And 9 times out of 10, when you're on multiple medications in the manner that they would be, one medication works to counteract the other one. And then this medication works on this, but it may decrease the effectiveness of this. And so these are conversations, that absolutely that we should be having and considering. But just as many people should be aware, this is a wake-up call that if you are suffering from more than one chronic condition, without being vaccinated, you are likely not going to have good outcomes from COVID. And the vaccine is not an end-all, be-all in terms of protection, so you should still practice prevention. But it is something that can assist your body that otherwise may not be able to fight if an infectious disease such as COVID does encounter it.
Carissa Jones has this question. How do they determine, or how did they determine, that COVID-19 became the cause of death as opposed to his other underlying diseases? Either of you want to take a stab at that?
I think the thing is and I'll start, and I know Dr. Deb is going to be able to add on to this. So the thing is we know that it wreaks havoc on your ACE2 receptors. Your ACE2 receptors is everywhere in your body. So if we're talking about Parkinson's and we're talking about, like, let's say neurological havoc, if we're talking about cancer and we're talking about where it is that it was affecting the body, we're still talking about immunocompromised state as well. So it's not to say that he didn't die from one of these other conditions, but what people have to understand is that a lot of these chronic conditions do come with a prognosis. A lot of times which is, long story short, we know the chances of someone dying based off of the data and previous situations. We also know where they are in terms of their trajectory of being sick. So in this particular case, if he got COVID-19 and it expedited that process, then that is why they would define the cause of death to be COVID-19. There is a variation, I agree, in regards to someone, like, I get it. We were talking about the whole George Floyd thing, and it was like, oh, he tested positive for COVID. And it's like, okay, but really, was that really his cause of death because somebody had his knee on his neck, So I think that, there are those instances where it may be misdiagnosed, or I believe that it goes down wrong in regards to which went first, the chicken or the egg. We just know at this point in time, in regards to the havoc that is wreaked, that 9 times out of 10, if there is a diagnosis, then it's like, okay, did this trigger you to come in? And have you had any previous hospitalizations without having COVID before? And if you had a hospitalization, it was linked to COVID into your chronic condition, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say that that's what triggered a hospitalization. So I hope that helps.
It does help, Dr. Verholden. Is there anything you'd like to add?
That's it.
Okay.
No, it's a good point. And the thing that I do want to just touch on, because I've heard a lot of the same stories that you've heard. I know I had a concern early on about just a question about what about people that have sickle cell disease? How did they look at that group in clinical trial testing? I just started to think about things that were very specific to African Americans. And our good buddy, the former president of the National Medical Association, Dr. Wnba, answered a lot of questions for us. They have their own task force at the COVID task force at the National Medical Association. And I can't remember his name, but the brother who's the president of Meharry Medical College is on the FDA board that evaluates the data. The Data Safety Monitoring Board for the FDA that evaluated the data from the trial. So I trust those guys. You know what I mean? I trust them. And the, data are transparently reported on the, FDA website. Many of the nuanced questions we were not able to answer with what's on that website. But there is good data and information there. And we also, again, have our own sources of trusted and credible information, like the National Medical Association. But the point is, the questions that people have, I think they're valid, and I get it. And I get that people have, many people still have more questions than answers. And the thing that we just really cannot get away from is many of those questions and the concerns that people have about the vaccine, they don't seem to have equal weight and concern about the virus itself. And Dr. Knighton touched on this. It's just, I want to underscore for people, this virus, what it binds to and where it goes in your body, like it has a preference to the lungs and the respiratory tract, but it can go anywhere. I heard so many concerns that people had about if the vaccine would impact their fertility, but I didn't hear the same amount of concerns from people with the virus and how would the virus impact their fertility. I just feel like I want us to also balance out some of these conversations so that people can understand there's a lot that you can do to protect yourself from contracting the virus. And getting vaccinated is one important piece of that.
And
it really is. And that is where we want to be. We want to do everything that we can to prevent people from getting sick in the first place.
And that's why you are here every day. And I'm so glad that you brought an infection preventionist, which I had never heard of before, onto the show. Because you said, because one of the things, just to let everyone know, what Dr. Verholden has wanted to do on this show with me is to build a team of people whom you could speak to, whom you could ask questions of, because it's important that that you have a place where you can go, because that's why that's why we have questions over here but not over there, because we're also with them marketing the vaccines as aggressively as they have done, Dr. Verholden. That raises suspicions of a lot of people, not just African Americans. I mean, not just Black people, everybody, because no one's chasing me down to give me insulin. Nobody's chasing me down to give me health care. And I think that at this time, while we're having these discussions, while they are mandating vaccines, while they're mandating, you need to mandate health care. Okay? That's something that you need to demand. We're the only industrialized Western country that doesn't have it. And you should not be going broke trying to get well. Renee had this to say: if you can get the vaccines at your local Walgreens, or even at the drive-thrus set up at random places, who's checking to see who's getting vaccinated or what their other medications or illnesses are? That's a good question, Dr. Verholden and Dr. Knighton.
Well, this type of ongoing surveillance is going to be really, really important. And I wish we were doing more, and I wish we were doing more on a large scale. Because some of the questions that we want answered, the only real way to answer them will, number one, be over time. And then number two will be with large-scale epidemiologic studies. We won't be able to do this when we're looking at, these little small studies that independent researchers are doing. So I'm a huge advocate. I think the data is so important. The electronic health record offers a transformative possibility and opportunity for us right now. If we could be linking vaccination records with electronic health records and doing large-scale national studies, we could answer questions just like that. The other thing that I think is needed is a better feedback loop where citizens themselves can report and it gets noted somewhere, any side effects or adverse reactions, and a lot of what people would probably report as adverse reactions are actually not an adverse reaction from the vaccine. See, people line everything up, so something happens, and someone got vaccinated, they'll attribute it to the vaccine, even if it's something that has nothing to do with the vaccine. But science can weed through that. The key is we need the data and the data infrastructure to be able to do that. And I do believe we need the large-scale systemic studies to answer some of these questions. We have some things happening, but not nearly at the scale I think that we need.
It's not. I mean, and what's not happening at the same scale is when people really do have adverse reactions. Trying to file a report is so laborious and crazy. People just don't even do it. I think more transparency, which is why you all are here every day. And, and you're first among equals, Dr. Deborah Verholden. I mean, it's just really. And because all of the information, the data, comes out of your school. And this is where you're from, Johns Hopkins. We just need to know, and we need to be able to have discussions. Because a lot of people, anecdotally, I'm hearing a lot of people come up to me every day, Dr. Verholden, with lots of stuff. And they say, since I got the shots, this happened, that happened. And then I have a lot of other people who say, I'm fine. First couple of days had a rough time. But then, I mean, it's a mix. And I think that if we could just have some open discussions about that without labeling people, I think we could be much, much, much further along. Because in the meantime, a third of the Chicago police force, as we are dealing with violence in this city, they could be off the force or be given some kind of leave because we've got a vaccine mandate, and that's happening at police forces all over the country. We've got to do something because what's happening here is not working. Daryl Prunty, who is not getting the vaccine, said that he thanks you for answering his questions, Dr. Deborah Verholden. And I hope that wherever you are, whatever your status, you all will continue to reach out to us, because that is why they're here every day, because we want you to be healthy. Dr. Knighton?
I just also want to add on to what Dr. Deb has said as well. I've actually been out in the field giving vaccines to the community and can attest that for every vaccine, whether we're talking about J&J, Moderna, or Pfizer, that there are questionnaires. It is not a simple process when someone has to go get vaccinated. In the vaccine pods, which are the point of dispensing, we have literally, you are getting a questionnaire at the beginning before you get there. Then when you get there, you have somebody that's screening you, that's going through the questionnaire with you. So if there are certain questions that are checked, then recommendations at that point are made as to whether or not you should get the vaccination. So there are decision trees that are in place and questionnaires that are in place, even at a Walgreens, a CVS, or some sort of pharmacy, that would be an indicator for that person to get the medication or not based off of what it is that we know. And that kind of goes into what Dr. Deb said, but I'm just kind of also, and not kind of mentioning, but I am mentioning that there are other gatekeeper mechanisms in place that do exist to make sure that we are ensuring safety as much as possible.
So just finally with you, Dr. Verholden, this comes from a CNN headline. Why vaccinated people dying from COVID-19 doesn't mean the vaccines are ineffective. I've got a minute and a half. Why don't you speak to that?
Yeah, well, now we are super duper clear what the vaccine is, and everybody knows now, and I know a lot of people feel like they were misled because I think everybody wanted something. We called the vaccine the dose of hope. Everybody wanted something that would get us back to some semblance of normal. I know what it's like for me. I went out last Thursday to a very, very small event. And it's the first event I've been to. I don't even remember when. And when I walked in, I thought, there's a few more people here than I feel comfortable with. I was like, no one checked me when I came in. And I knew a lot of the people at the event, but some of them I didn't know. And I just remember what it was like going through those long periods of isolation, and then being told we're going to have this vaccine and that's going to help to get us out of this thing. But in the meantime, everybody stay put, shelter in place, and don't go anywhere. And you have to go, you got to wear your mask, wash your hands 1,000 times, all these things, right? It was like, that does not escape me how the toll that took on people, both financially, physically, socially, emotionally, all of that. And so then people, I think, had high hopes for the vaccine, and now we're really having to face the reality of it, which is it is an important but imperfect layer of protection. It is imperfect. It's not going to solve all the problems, but it's going to add value. And so I think we have to continue with the good health literacy, being transparent, being honest with people, and then really meeting people where they are, because ultimately, I'm just telling you where we're headed, is everybody's going to have to get vaccinated. That's just where we'll be. That's where we'll be headed. And in 15 years, when India's looking back and they're talking about, in one of her health classes, disease outbreaks and other things, and they talk about this, that people are going to scratch their head and wonder why in 2020 we went through this as long as we did. They'll wonder why we had it look very similar to the pandemic of the early 1900s, despite all of this medicine and all of this innovation and all of this knowledge. But that's where we're headed.
Well, everybody, let's continue to be on the lookout, because in the meantime, what we're trying to do every day is give you some information, credible information from credible messengers. Dr. Deborah Verholden, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University's School of Medicine, and, of course, Dr. Shanina Knighton, Case Western Reserve University Research Scholar, Infection Preventionist. Oh, so grateful to have you ladies here every day at the top of we're about to go at the top of the hour. The 7th anniversary of Laquan Mcdonald's murder is upon us, and guess who's getting a big promotion? Good. Rob Emanuel. But that's all on you. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. My beautiful ladies, I'm going to have to let you all go, but you know I love you. Boy, we got a lot of questions here. A lot of them.
I won't do what I did yesterday. I was laughing so hard. It was such a great conversation. I could punish to listen.
Oh no, girl, no. You know what? I lost two call-in lines. That's the thing. So that's the only reason I have to rush you all off, because I encouraged you to stay from the beginning, didn't I?
Yeah. But no, it was really great. And then you said, we need to clear up a line. I need a line. Wow, the lines are. I said, I'm still on.
You know what happened? People were like sending messages. They're like, I'm trying to call in. I've got something I want to say. I said, okay. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I know, like, if I get more than 3 callers, I got a problem, because I lost two call-in lines. Which and I get a lot of complaints about it. But it is what it is. So, Good morning. Robert Jackson says, I have pre-existing health conditions and didn't die from COVID. So when I hear how someone with pre-existing health issues dies from COVID, it baffles me. And others, why them and not us? And I refuse to take the vaccination as well. After listening to these doctors, it appears as well as Dr. Fauci, you said they're clueless about the science of this virus. But they're not clueless on promoting these vaccines. Well, you know what? I think it's, Walter, I think it's a little bit more than this. They're not clueless.
On the line.
What they're trying to do is find out a lot. And one of the things that I must give Doctors Verholden and Knighton credit for, they're listening. And they're giving you the information. They're straight shooters. I wouldn't have them here were they not. And so just keep listening. And I want you to call in someday, because, they're not averse to to listening to you and talking to you and even engaging in debate. A lot of people, America's been stubbornly resistant to these shots and to a lot of things, because that's just the nature of Americans. And there's a lot of mistrust and a lot of distrust.
And I caution people against going with the exception and not the rule. So I would never diminish anybody's own personal experience. He had the experience that he had. But you know how many people didn't have that experience? How many families, their loved ones are gone? I literally I'm still interacting with a woman here in my own county whose granddaughter 12 years old, contracted COVID, gave it to her mom. Her mom gave it to her sister, and then her sister gave it to her son. Grandma, luckily, has not contracted COVID. The mom and the sister are both hospitalized. One is on a ventilator, unconscious. The other one is in the ICU. The one that's in the ICU but not on the ventilator actually has lupus and is on dialysis. We don't understand why the one who's on dialysis and has lupus. Mind you, she's in the hospital, she's in the ICU, but didn't have to go on a ventilator. But her sister, who was otherwise healthy and is 2 years her junior, otherwise healthy, one is 40, one is 38, is on a ventilator now fighting for her life. So, I mean, for every one case of somebody who said, well, I had this and I was fine, or I could give you 25 other cases where it went a completely different way. That's why I said we need the data. This isn't anything about the science of the vaccine. This is the science of studying population health, and that is what I am an expert in. Far from clueless on. So I'm advocating we do need those studies, but don't go with the exception. Don't go with that one case. And really, I would never discredit somebody's own personal experience, but realize that's an N of one, an experience of one human being. We've got to look at a much larger picture and not give people advice based on the experience of one person.
And Lorraine says, thank you, Dr. Verholden. And I want to continue to expand the discussion to talk to some people who have had COVID and who've been asymptomatic without the vaccine, who've also, actually, I have some friends, Dr. Verholden and Dr. Knighton, who completely changed their lifestyles around. They completely went to to diets that were completely healthy. And it's helped them a lot, so it's just, I think there are a lot of things, because what we need to be doing in addition to all of this something that Dr. Verholden and Dr. Knight have been talking about. You need to find out what's in the meat and in the vegetables that you eat. We have to get healthy. So I'm gonna have to let you two go because I gotta free up these two lines. I need to take these two lines. But I love you so much. We're gonna be talking about that, and we'll be with you in the morning. Dr. Deborah Verholden and Dr. Knight in a powerful, knowledgeable, intelligent duo. Thank you, Joyce. That's what you said. Everybody loves you. And Jewel says she's keeping hope alive. I love you, ladies.
All right, have a great show.
Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. Keep listening. Hey, everybody, let's talk about the 7th anniversary of Laquan Mcdonald's murder. And guess who's getting a promotion possibly on that day?
I have the Reverend and Miss Cobb on the line.
Okay, you have Reverend Ira Acree. I cannot believe I just did that. Reverend Acree?
He's on.
Yeah, good morning, Santita. How are you?
It's good hearing your voice. And Del Marie Cobb.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Miss Del Marie?
I'm fine, thank you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So let me just move some of these pieces around here so I can get on to the rest. But it's always a joy to be with you all today. Let me move this over here.
It's a great honor to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you very much. As the Chicago sky,
45 seconds.
We're going to be lifted to the sky, deservedly so. So we want to embrace our young female athletes. You know, I'm of the generation where this was the first. My generation was like Title IX hit us in the 70s and 80s, and so to see these young athletes, these women, get the shine. You know, I remember the Virginia Slims because I'm a real tennis
15 seconds.
fanatic. And I just remember them. I remember Billie Jean King and Rosie Casals and everybody fighting to get equal pay. And I remember that so clearly, and I'm so grateful to her. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to tell her that. Stand by.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio. The voice of progressive Minnesota and so many other places. I want to thank you all for being with us today. Meet my morning stars over on the Santita Jackson YouTube channel. That's right, the Santita Jackson YouTube channel. Robert, everybody get on over there, and Jarvis and Dave. Meet Linda over there. And Mike Land is heading over there. Linear Bob's already there, and on and on and on. Please get on over there. And Kenneth D, everybody, get on over to the Santita Jackson YouTube channel, Santita Jackson Show, and of course the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. Everybody, we're talking about Rahm Emanuel. It's the 7th anniversary tomorrow of Laquan Mcdonald's murder, but Rahm Emanuel, the former mayor, is in line to get a big promotion on that day. Wow, and it's going to be public. It's going to be a vote on his whether he will become the ambassador to Japan or not. So, and he's got a lot of Republican support and unstated Democratic support. So we want to talk about that today on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's get to a couple of these headlines so that we can get to that particular topic. It is of great import. Our shout out to the Wnba. That's right. The Sky, the Chicago Sky, brought Chicago a championship for the first time in more than 20 years. They will be celebrated today. Chance the Rapper and so many others will be guest speakers at their rally. It begins at 11 o'clock, everybody, at the Wintrust Arena, and it will be followed by a parade up Michigan Avenue. So glad to see that. North to Randolph, and they will go into Millennium Park for a ceremony, everybody. Sky fans are encouraged to line up along the parade route to watch and cheer on the team, everybody. Let's do that. Let's do that. For our young ladies, our great, great athletes, they deserve all the shine that we gave the Cubs when they won the World Series and the Bulls when they won championship series. They are our champions, the Chicago Sky, everybody. We're going to have a high of 71 degrees today in Chicago. It will be partly cloudy. A high of 74 degrees in Minneapolis, St. Paul, partly cloudy. The Dow closed down 36 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 124 points. The S&P 500 closed up 15 points. In baseball, well, we are in the playoff season, and guess what? The championship season. The Red Sox are on fire. There's no other way to put it. They have had four Grand Slam home runs of late. That's these 4-run homers when the bases are loaded and then the batter hits a home run. Oh yeah, they did it again last night, everybody. So they were triumphant over the Astros 12-3. Wow. And they'll be playing the Astros once again today. And Atlanta will be facing off against the Dodgers. Last night, if you're a fan of football, what a game. The Titans versus the Bills. The Titans were triumphant 34-31 over the Bills, everybody. Well, what is going on in the House committee investigating the January 6th riot? Well, they will discuss a contempt report today about former Trump advisor Steve Bannon, according to the CNN report. This report released yesterday details how Bannon evaded the committee's subpoena request and could be used to set up a vote Friday to hold Bannon in criminal contempt for not complying. He could face anywhere from a month to a year in prison for ignoring that dictate, everybody. And what about vaccine? Vaccine opposition is causing division everywhere, from schools to police forces. More than a third of Chicago's police officers have defied a deadline to report their vaccination status. That means about 4,500 officers are now at risk of being placed on a no-pay status soon. In Miami, a private school is making children who receive the shot stay home for 30 days. And we're finding that Governor Northam of Virginia, he said that he has had long COVID for 1 year. He has had a prolonged loss of taste and smell, and he had a mild illness, but he is still struggling with it, everybody. So think about that, everybody. Please be careful. Please be careful. Whether you've been vaccinated or not, please mask. Please engage in solid, good oral hygiene, hand hygiene, and on and on and on. We need all of the defenses against this disease that we can get. Did you know that U.S. billionaires became $2.1 trillion richer in the 19 months of the pandemic? Yes, I said it. They had a 70% surge of wealth since most of us collapsed during this pandemic. Since March of 2020, they have gotten $2.1 trillion richer. What do you make of that, everybody? What do you make of that? Joe Manchin has sparked fury with demands for a work requirement. That's right. Progressives responded with outrage following Sunday night's report that Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia, one of the poorest states in the United States, has told the White House that he would only support prolonging the expanded child tax credit, a key component of the Build Back Better bill, if it includes a work requirement and limits benefits to households with annual incomes under $60,000. How do you think the people of West Virginia will feel about that, everybody? And we're watching the Ahmaud Arbery trial. Of course, last February, he was jogging and he was killed by 3 white men. It was caught on tape. We will see how all of this plays out with this jury selection, which is expected to take several weeks. Everybody, of course, we're all mourning the loss of the first Black U.S. Secretary of State, the first Black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Colin Powell, 84 years of age. He served our country. Even though he was a Republican, he was also transpartisan. He felt, as a matter of principle, because he agreed with the man and the mission, that he would then step away from his party and support then Senator Barack Obama in 2008. And he's always been someone who reached across the lines. Had some ups and downs in his career. Who doesn't? But he was a remarkable and loving husband. His family stated on Facebook, loving husband, father, grandfather, great American. And he was fully vaccinated, but he'd been struggling with multiple myeloma, Parkinson's, and he was fully vaccinated and he died from complications from COVID-19. So everybody, please be careful. Let's get right to it, everybody. I don't know what else to say. This Common Dreams headline says it all. Disgusting. Rahm Emanuel confirmation vote to be held on the 7th anniversary of Laquan McDonald's murder. Now, I have to go back and think about just how Laquan McDonald's murder and how our discovery of it, trying to see the tape, seeking it out. We have to thank Jamie Calvin and the Invisible Institute for doggedly pursuing the release of that tape. And we lost a mayor over it, Mayor Emanuel, as a matter of fact. And yet he continues to grow in stature. He continues to grow in stature after he was really kind of drummed out of office. He said, I'm not going to run again, but everyone knew that he could not run again. You then saw him come back and he was brought on as a political pundit on network television, on the cable networks. And then we find that he's made a lot of money. Okay. We just he keeps on growing in stature. And now he's got one of the most plum assignments that any president can offer, one of the superpower nations, Japan. He could become the U.S. ambassador. What do you think about that? He's got Republican support. He's got Democratic support. Wow. So let's talk about this today on the Santita Jackson Show. What do you think about it? I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Two of the most qualified people I know who can talk about this. We have got Delmarie Cobb, someone I've known for a long time. She was one of my father's press secretaries. She helped to run the press office during his presidential campaign. Brilliant journalist on television and print and radio. And she is head of publicity works. And she's also an activist. And she has been writing and really pushing us to understand the consequences of him getting this confirmation. And then we've got Reverend Ira Acree, another person from Rainbow Push. Indeed, he's from the Ministers Division, but he is the pastor of the Greater St. John Bible Church in Chicago on the West Side. I got to say that for you, Reverend Acree. And he's also the chair of the Leaders Network. I got to say it. You told me I needed to. But to me, it's all one side in Chicago. We're all one people. But, let me go to you, Delmarie, because you have been pushing to get people to understand the consequences. Really, what has got you? It's a bee in your bonnet for this man to be able to get this nomination. So why don't you take us back and help us to understand your thinking?
Well, it's just that it's amazing to me that someone who was not able to mount a third run for mayor because the writing was on the wall. He clearly was not going to win. His poll numbers were the lowest they could be, and he wanted to save face, and so he decided to step down. And he was a failed mayor in every sense of the word, and yet he can fail up because he has done nothing but had one success after the other in an effort to rehabilitate his reputation, his legacy, his resume. And of course, because his friends are the rich and powerful, they have helped him every step of the way elevate his reputation and erase what he did here in Chicago beyond all the other things, and there were many things he did, but the image of Rahm Emanuel, and what should be the most disqualifying thing that he did was the police cover-up of Laquan Mcdonald's murder. For anyone to believe that he did not know about the video and that it would just happen to be a coincidence that 5 days after his reelection campaign, 5 days after he was reelected, his corporation counsel went to the city council finance committee and asked for $5 million to pay the mother of Laquan McDonald before there was any kind of legal movement, and the fact that the corporation counsel said to the finance committee, this will be a lesser amount than if it goes to trial, so we should do this. So they all knew the ramifications of that videotape if it ever became public. And so that, to me, you cannot sit up here on a national level on the one hand and say that you support the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, and on the other hand, promote a person who is the face of a police murder and a police cover-up.
You wrote that the cover-up of Laquan's murder was the final straw for Black people. Can you take us back for that? Because he came in, really in a blaze of glory. He had been the chief of staff for the first Black president of the United States, and then it was announced from the White House. Basically, he made his announcement from the White House. So he came in, Black people felt very, very hopeful and delivered him this victory, really the mayor's seat, which is something that he'd always wanted.
Well, he had never had a reputation of being for Black people. I mean, the Congressional Black Caucus never liked him. And many of his policies were anti-Black people nationally. And so there was never a warm and fuzzy feeling about Rahm Emanuel. But Black people in Chicago made a deliberative decision that, given he was connected to the first Black president, that he was from Chicago, that he had been in the Clinton administration, here was somebody who knew how to get the resources and bring them back to the communities most in need. That was the decision. I want everybody to understand that Black people were deliberative. We didn't just go and follow somebody. That was a calculated decision. I was one of the people begging Black people not to do it, because I was like, we're free. We're free of the dailies. Let's stay free. And so I was supporting Miguel de Valle. But we made that decision. And then he came in, and the very people who supported him, he got 55% of the Black vote. And the very people who supported him, he betrayed by closing 6 of 12 mental health centers, facilities in mostly Black and brown communities, by closing 50 schools in mostly Black and brown communities, the largest number of school closures in the history of the United States. But, I mean, there's so many things that he did by taking on the CTU. And the reason he took them on, I believe, is because it was headed by a Black woman. And he saw that he could make his reputation on the back of a Black woman. And he just ran into a buzzsaw because Karen Lewis was not someone who was going to be pushed over, but that's what he did. And so everything he did was a calculation of how to be tough and look tough and effective by hurting Black people. And that's what he did his whole entire administration here in Chicago. And that's why Laquan McDonald was the last straw.
Reverend Ira Acree, you are one of the leaders in our community in Chicago and nationally, one of our great ministers, and one of our great preacher activists. Your thoughts about this? I mean, what was your reaction when you saw it? I mean, because you're a man of the Bible. You look at symbols. Now, seriously, I mean, because we go to you for interpretation. I certainly do. He's one of my spiritual leaders. I'd like to know about the 7th anniversary of Laquan McDonald's murder and holding the vote for his promotion on this particular day, Pastor.
Well, let me just say thank you for having me again. And I want to say, Del Marie really, she nailed it. This guy was just horrific for the African-American community. I think his policies were woefully disastrous for us, even though, as Del Marie mentioned, he could not have won without the Black vote. Now, it's unfortunate that we're at the bottom of the American caste system, and Biden's administration, who could not have won without Blacks as well, is slapping us in the face. But to answer your question particularly, I think it's spiritual. I think it's poetic justice. I don't think it's an accident, but I think God is exposing the craziness of this particular guy who's been an advocate for white supremacy. I mean, he failed the Black community, not only with the Laquan McDonald murder, which was a disgrace and a shame, and which should have forfeited his right to hold any cabinet position in the Democratic Party. But when Del Marie talked about closing the 50 schools in our neighborhood, that really is it's the school closure has a negative impact on every neighborhood because it decimates an economic engine in that neighborhood. Schools are being closed with hundreds of employees, but also that gas station in that area, that convenience store. restaurants in that particular neighborhood. And then to add to that, middle class families don't move into neighborhoods without a school in walking distance. So he earned his reputation, Mayor 1%, for a reason, because he was bent on just keeping down the South Side and West Side, which was a code word for black and browns for those who may live in other parts of the country. And he was committed to building up the North Side and downtown. You know, so yeah, we cannot think that this is something that we could let pass by. Reverend Jackson taught us many years ago that when you have these kind of egregious situations in your community, it's bad enough to deal with it, but what's worse than that is to adjust to it. We cannot adjust to this madness.
Let me go to Angela from Chicago. Angela, what's on your mind today?
Hi. I have to take you off a speaker.
Of course, of course.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Nobody's bringing up the fact that Rahm ran against Chuy Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
And Chuy Garcia said, I'll take away all of the cameras, the $100 cameras that all Chicagoans are being, it's a tax. It's a tax. Everybody's getting all kinds of $100 tickets now every month. And Chuy said, I will take away all the cameras. And he was so close, but he did not win. He did not win because Rahm went to the black community, the black churches, and they didn't want a Hispanic mayor. He bought them off. Chuy lost. I cried that day. I cried because Rahm Emanuel taxed us with more water bills are so high you can hardly pay them. And he was just a hard mayor. Everything was taxed to the people. We still are being taxed. But that's all I wanted to say. Nobody brought up Chuy Garcia. Even though he's a congressman now, Chicago would have benefited greatly. But that's something that's something that nobody brings up. The black community just didn't want a Hispanic mayor.
Well, I don't know if it's as simple, but you know what, Angela? I don't think it's as simple as that. Because I know I supported Chuy Garcia, and I will say this: Chuy Garcia was also very active in Reverend Jackson's. If I may say this, he was very active in Reverend Jackson's presidential campaign. So that's where I first met Congressman Garcia. But stay right there, Angela. I think that Pastor Acree would like to respond to you. Pastor Acree?
Yeah.
I've got about a minute.
Reverend Ira Acree is my name, ma'am. If you would just Google me and Reverend Jesse Jackson and Marshall Hatch. We tried to push Chuy Garcia, but Rahm Emanuel had two things working for him. He had a multi-million-dollar political war chest, and also he had the sitting Barack Obama, the first black president, on commercials,
campaigning for him
and pushing him.
He even came in town,
Absolutely.
right?
So that's what happened.
He even came in town, right?
I'm not saying that he didn't have black support, but I'm saying that Rahm Emanuel went and bought off. That's the whole thing. They buy off people, and that's why he won. And it was just a shame.
Well, but Miss Angela, I will say this, because I don't want it, because I think you mean well, but I think what we're trying to do is put a very fine point on it. Black people did not push back against Chuy Garcia. You had President Obama who was pushing for the sitting mayor. That made a big difference at that time because you had some prominent African Americans like Reverend Hatch and Reverend Acree. I know my brother Jonathan Jackson, Reverend Jackson, people were supporting Chuy Garcia, but pushing, but President Obama, that's what he had on his side. He had that. And that was a big lift. And that was a big deal. That was a really big deal. But Angela, I want to thank you for calling in. And then thank you because I was saddened when he did not win. But, we have to keep on going. But now we've got something else. We've got the 7th anniversary of Laquan Mcdonald's murder. And guess what? Rahm Emanuel is looking at yet another promotion. What do you think about it? Jeff Cohen will be joining this panel, and we're going to be getting your calls at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. If you want to text me at that number, GWC, if your lawyers gives you that opportunity. Let's talk about this. What do you think about it? Back in just a minute on the Santita Jackson Show. Okay, wonderful, wonderful people. That was great. Ooh, stay right there. We're going to bring Jeff Cohen, one of our dear friends, up. Very excited about that. And so you all can keep on talking. I'm trying to, I'm not in the studio is my dining room table. So I'm trying to get some.
Reverend Acree is one of my favorite people, and as we were just saying, we were all out there campaigning for Jesus Garcia. So I supported Miguel de Valle and Jesus Garcia.
Yeah.
Because if you're progressive, you're progressive. You're not progressive occasionally. It's about your values. And so it was, but as you said, Barack Obama, the president, did a commercial. And the commercial basically said, Rami, forgive him. He's just hard-headed. He'll do better next time.
Mr. Cohen is on the line.
Chance.
Yeah.
That was the crux of the message. And black people, we're always forgiving. And we said, well, okay, we'll do that. And that's what makes this even more insulting, is that after we did that, 5 days later, we learned about them trying to pay off the mother of Laquan Mcdonald. That's what makes this even more insulting.
I don't know if we're forgiving Del Marie as much as we are excusing. Because if we were forgiving, we'd have peace. Because the anger goes someplace, we turn it inward.
Well, we're forgiving of everybody else.
I think we excuse people. We give you a pass. We gave him a pass. Then we get angry with each other.
Right.
I'm like, please, really? But we have Jeff Cohen with us. Jeff Cohen?
Hey, nice to be with you.
Oh, I've got your friend Del Marie Cobb here.
She's wonderful.
Isn't she a jewel? She's a blessing. And we've got Reverend Ira Acree. He is the pastor. Let me not start with your push credentials, Pastor Acree. He's the pastor of the Greater St. John Bible Church here in Chicago. And he's also part of the ministers division of Rainbow Push. I have to say that. He and Reverend have been working together for decades. Did I get that right, Pastor Acree?
Yeah, I was a very young guy.
All of us, Reverend Acree.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I think you all are precious.
Hey, I was there in those 1980s campaigns, too,
Oh, well, come on now. You're not I'm going to give it to you.
I was 10.
No. That's right. You and John Nichols.
Yeah.
Babies.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Hey, I sent Del Marie and Santita the Washington Post this morning. Apparently, all of Chicago supports Emanuel's nomination.
I mean, more PR help?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's it.
Please.
It's unbelievable. They mention someone from the Urban League supporting Emanuel, but they don't mention the NAACP opposing. They don't mention Rainbow Push. They don't mention Black Lives Matter, Justice for Families. They said somehow 3 reporters on the story, they couldn't find someone in Chicago who opposed the nomination.
30 seconds.
And as vocal as I've been, they couldn't find anybody.
I don't know how many times we've sent your name to the Washington Post. I mean, again, it's PR help. If you look at the...
Oh, no, hold on. We're about to come up. I want you to explain that story so people know what they're reading, right?
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sure. I want them to know. Because some people, there are corporatists and there are populists. And that's what we've got to get away from all this party talk. Because you've got Democrats who are supporting him, too. And that's what it is. It's corporatists and populists. Who are you? Stand by.
Change the world. Can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
More and hate. to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. We're talking about Rahm Emanuel at WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And I want you to meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please, everybody, get on over there. Get on over there. We're building up the numbers, and I want to thank you for that. And, of course, the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook, 773-763-9278. Your Pearl, I'm going to get to you and everybody else who's calling in. 773-763-9278. I want you to meet Reverend Ira Acree, pastor of the Greater St. John Bible Church, Ministers Division from Rainbow Push, chair of the Leaders Network, and Marie Cobb, journalist, political consultant, all around just brilliant woman, publicity work. She's also Reverend Jackson's former press secretary for his 88 presidential campaign. We're all kind of refugees from the presidential campaign, Jeff Cohen, co-founder of Roots Action. Norman Solomon were very prominent in the campaign as well, helping us to shape a message. And so we're just so grateful. And of course, you, Reverend Ira Acree, okay, everybody came from the Jackson campaign. How about that? It was a great gathering spot for progressives. We haven't seen anything like it before. Maybe nothing like that since. But we've got a lot of people who've called in today. But Jeff Cohen, you just sent me something from the Washington Post. I just love you, Jeff Cohen. Of course, they also founded fairness and accuracy in reporting. So they're always keeping us on the spot. They stopped me from calling the media mainstream. You said, no, they're corporate media. Thank you for that.
Right.
The headline is Emanuel touts support among black leaders ahead of confirmation hearing for the ambassador's job. But senators have questions. First of all, I want to know why they're holding this hearing on the 7th anniversary of Laquan McDonald's death. But I digress. You talk to us. What is going on here? What is the Washington Post telling us, Jeff Cohen?
It's what we call selective reporting. They had 3 reporters on this story, and they found African Americans from Chicago that are supporting Rahm Emanuel. But gee, they couldn't find a single African American activist or leader in Chicago that's opposing the nomination. Very funny. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Maybe if he spent more money on actual reporters and less money on going into space, we could have more accurate coverage. But I mean, I was incensed when I saw this story this morning. It's public relations help for the Emanuel nomination. You wouldn't know from reading the story that there are all sorts of people in Chicago that oppose the nomination. The only people mentioned in today's Washington Post that opposed the nomination are members of Congress, and they weren't even named or quoted. They were referred to. Obviously, Mondaire Jones, Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, Congresswoman AOC, they've all put out strong statements. What an insult to people of color to nominate Rahm Emanuel for such a prestigious post. You wouldn't have gotten any of that in the Washington Post story this morning, but you heard about someone who is connected to the Urban League and then went into the Emanuel administration supporting him. A great uncle of Laquan McDonald has sent a letter. It's fascinating to me. I taught journalism at Ithaca College. You're always taught to look at various sides of a story. But when you see an article like this in the Washington Post, and it's only got one side, it's only quoting people that support Emanuel, including African-American leaders in Chicago, you're getting half of the story or less.
Not even in this report from the Washington Post, it says, in response to a request for comment on Monday night, an administration official provided a copy of the September 11th letter signed by the Reverend Marvin Hunter, a pastor at Grace Memorial Baptist Church, and McDonald's great uncle, addressed to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And he wrote, I realize, quote, that my position on this nomination might come as a surprise to some. I may even be attacked for speaking up. However, I am a man of faith. I believe in what the scripture says about righteous judgment and looking into a person's heart. I've taken the time to get to know Rahm Emanuel. We have listened to each other, truly heard each other. I understand the character of the man, and that is why I support this nomination. I will not attack Reverend Hunter. I have all the respect for him and love for him. I just disagree on this, but, no one's going to beat him loving Laquan Mcdonald. So I want to establish that. And so, we just happen to disagree because we're looking at the whole record of Rahm Emanuel. But I cannot thank you enough, Jeff Cohen, for bringing up this article. But it seems that he continues to fail up. No one's talking about Jeff Cohen, all of this Republican support he's getting, and wait a minute, all of the Democratic support he's getting too.
Yeah, well, that's what's fascinating to me. We all go back to the Reverend Jesse Jackson campaigns of the 1980s. So I've been following Rahm Emanuel from the beginning. And, he started as a fundraiser from big corporate interests for then Governor Bill Clinton. And inside the Clinton White House, there were all these splits within the Democratic Party. And Rahm Emanuel was always on the conservative corporate side. When Bill Clinton pushed NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, and Rahm Emanuel was one of the lieutenants of that campaign, most Democrats in the House voted against NAFTA. They wouldn't go along with it. So Rahm Emanuel and the Republicans and Bill Clinton got NAFTA through. It hurt workers. It was opposed by unions. It was opposed by environmental groups. It was opposed by Reverend Jackson. But it got through with Republican help. And then 3 years later, welfare deformed. It was this punitive Republican-drafted welfare deform that eliminated the 60-year program aid to families with dependent children. It was punitive. It gave more power to the states. A lot of racist states just punished poor people as a result of that. And again, Rahm Emanuel was the strongest voice in the Clinton White House arguing for it. Another failed policy. Rahm Emanuel was a minority. Most House Democrats opposed the Bush-Cheney invasion of Iraq. Rahm Emanuel was running for office for the Congress at that point in the fall of 2002, and then he gets into office in January 2003. He supported the Iraq invasion, the Bush-Cheney Republican invasion. So now we jump forward after the disgrace, the tainted administration for mayor in Chicago. We jump forward, and as you say, Santita, he's failing upward, and he's getting, as always, Republican support. One of his strongest supporters in the Senate, who's already announced he's going to support Rahm Emanuel, is Lindsey Graham, one of the senators who's the most sycophantic for the former racist president Donald Trump. So it's sickening to me. The most important column I've read on this whole Rahm Emanuel as ambassador and Rahm Emanuel failing upward is the column by Del Marie Cobb.
Yes.
I think it was called Skin Privilege, because this guy, he's rich, he's white, he's connected to all these corporate interests. He's always been connected to the most powerful corporate interests in the country, and he's allowed to fail, and keep getting jobs. If you're a poor kid from the south side of Chicago, you don't get second and third chances.
Or if you're a populist, Jeff Cohen. Corporatists continue to get
wings.
Yes, they get chance after chance.
In the Democratic.
Yes.
Right. If you're a Democrat who fights for workers and poor people, you just don't get the second and third and fourth chances. If you're a Democrat who serves corporate interests, you can sail, and you can get the public relations help from the Washington Post. Remember, the Washington Post is a national newspaper this morning doing this support for Rahm Emanuel, and I don't want to put down Reverend Hunter. He's got a right to his point of view.
Absolutely.
But if you put out an article in the Washington Post and you quote Reverend Hunter, but you don't quote Del Marie Cobb or Reverend Acree or all of these groups that are on this news release, and they're having a news conference today in Chicago at 11 a.m., it's not journalism. It's PR propaganda for Emanuel, and I'm tired of it.
Propaganda, propping someone up. What is happening at 11 o'clock today?
Could I say something here?
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah, I just want to say it's amazing to me how Laquan McDonald's murder did not get the same type of exposure nationally as that of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, Freddie Gray, Tamir Rice, George Floyd. I mean, it seems like this guy really has a lot of political acumen and clout, even in the media, where it seems like he can manipulate it, and has been so effective in that. Whenever you're at any type of event that's talking about police reform, and they start talking about police murders, I've heard the roll call several times, and I would always call my friend Greg Livingston, who's also from Rainbow Push in New York, and we would talk about how in the world do they not mention Laquan McDonald's murder. So that's a glaring fact that I just really have problems with.
As well you should. Something's happening at, Del Marie, before we go to the callers. 11 o'clock today, what's happening?
So at 11 o'clock today, we're going to have a news conference in front of the Chicago Police Department headquarters at 35th and Michigan. And we're going to, with a coalition of groups, condemn the nomination and confirmation of Rahm Emanuel for U.S. ambassador to Japan. As I said earlier, he should be disqualified from ever holding any kind of public office, no matter what kind of office it is. And this is a campaign by the rich and powerful to rehabilitate his reputation so that he can then run for office again. And we will look up, and he will be the next senator from Illinois when Durbin steps down, if we don't say something about this now. And this is another example of taking the black vote for granted and using us, which is why so many black people have disenfranchised themselves from any kind of politics because they see this over and over and over again.
Hey, everybody, you know what? Jeff Cohen, Reverend Ira Acree, Del Marie Cobb. I've got people who want to weigh in. My phone lines are full. Let me go to you. Renee, what's on your mind? Renee from the West Side.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for having so many knowledgeable people every day on your show as guests. And for that, the person who said that they looked at Rahm Emanuel's whole record because of, their Christian upbringing or whatever. In the Bible, I think it also says you can judge the fruit of a tree. You can judge a tree by its fruit. And when I look at Rahm Emanuel, I see a whole lot of rotten fruit that has come forth, especially regarding black people. And he didn't just close 50 schools, Santita. He took schools 13 when he closed my school, Herzl. He took 10 when he closed my school, the Borak. Or he didn't close it. He just got rid of all the staff members, and he gave it to his friends from AUSL who helped him make that. I forgot how many millions he made between gigs with President Clinton and being a representative. He made an awful lot of money. It was a conflict of interest when he put Batal and I forgot the other one's name in charge, and then the one he put in charge of as the chief financial officer said he wouldn't give any money to any schools that he was going to close. He came in with an agenda. He said that charter schools were the top schools in Chicago when we knew that wasn't the truth. And it wasn't the corporate media that corrected him. It was some students who did a video for DeValier, who I voted for the first time, and I voted for Chuy Garcia. And I was at Push Santita doing voter registration training. And then your brother, before the broadcast started, he even told about Rahm Emanuel and how he would not even vote. He voted against every bill that would help black people, including giving water to the drought victims in the Sudan. This man has disdain for black people. And the more I see Biden doing things, I see he has disdain for us also. And that's what I wanted to say. I wrote a song when he was running the second time, and it goes like this. You can vote for Willie Wilson. You can vote for Garcia. You can vote for Willie Wilson. You can vote for William Bill Oswald. But please, oh please, don't fall for the tricks of the 1%. And it goes on like that. It's been a few years, so I can't remember all the words. But I have never supported Rahm Emanuel or what he did. And thank you for taking my call now. I'm 1 minute late for work. I'll talk to you later.
Love you, girl. Let me go to Chris from Wheaton. Chris, what's on your mind?
Good morning, Santita.
What's
Good
going
morning,
on, Chris?
Santita. Good morning, panel. Well, I've been considering this since you brought this discussion, a couple of days ago about the tie between the Mcdonald murder and this confirmation to, which is what, by the way, Japan is by far our most important economic and military ally in Asia at this time, especially with the rise of China militarily and economically. So I've been racking my brain to try to think about ways to tie Rahm Emanuel's unethical and racist behavior in Chicago to a global stage. And I think I may have found it, if you'll indulge me for a moment, which is that we have military bases in the southern island of Okinawa in Japan. And the Okinawan people I'm not trying to tie them to the people of Chicago necessarily, but they are a unique culture. They're a more country people, and they have a unique version of the Japanese language. They have a unique culture. And it happens regularly where military people who are stationed in the military there are rapes. There are kids getting run over by drunken soldiers, like on their days off type of thing, and they never get in trouble. They never get arrested. And it's become a serious problem. And Okinawa is one of the only places in Japan that has like what the Japanese consider terrorism against their government when these people are protesting against the military bases in Okinawa. And I can't help but think that that's as close as I can come to a comparison between the murder of Laquan Mcdonald in cold blood, a child. He was a child and he was in crisis, and he was murdered like an animal, and it's a tragedy. But the thing I think it was important to remember is that, which your panelists so astutely pointed out, was that was less of a national story than we in Chicago believe. As Chicagoans, we saw that every day, and we were heated over it. And that was a big deal. And, Showtime did an excellent documentary called 17 Shots, which I highly recommend to everybody. It's on YouTube for free. It is an outstanding film, and they did an excellent job portraying the unethical behavior of Rahm's administration and the police at that time. But I think it would be wise for the people doing the confirmation hearings to maybe tie the behavior of Rahm as a mayor to how that type of unethical treatment of people.
But you know what, Chris?
People without privilege.
Chris, I want to get a couple other callers in, but you're absolutely right. The problem is you can't even Google Laquan McDonald, Rahm Emanuel, and 7th anniversary. I mean, and the fact that they're having this on the 7th anniversary of this child's murder, and you're right, he was a child. It's just despicable. It's so cruel. You can just hold on a minute. We're going to talk about this a little bit after we get off the air, but let me go on to Chapearl. Chapearl, what's on your mind today?
Thank you so much, Santita, for taking my call. I want to say that as a mother of a murder victim in Chicago, I am outraged. My son was murdered under the Rahm administration. My son was handcuffed while he was dying, and CPD covered that up. And they still lie to this day that this actually happened to my son. And so to see that Rahm is being given this prestigious nomination infuriates me as a mother, because it's once again saying that my son's life didn't matter, Laquan's life didn't matter, and all of the murders that happened under his administration did not matter. Under Rahm, the murder solve rate were in the teens, and it was in the single digits for Black people. Our murders are still unsolved today. There are still cops that are covering up what happened to our children today. And this is because the culture that was set forth by this administration of lying and covering up to protect his image. He did not care about the lives lost of these Black children. And so we see that not only, Laquan happened, Holman Square happened, so many things happened under this administration, and I'm outraged. I am outraged that our senators, Duckworth and Durbin, are supporting this nomination. I'm outraged that some of the Black caucus is supporting it. What in the heck are we doing as Black people? I just don't understand it. So I will be out there today protesting along with Del Marie and Reverend Acree, because we have to understand that if we do not speak up for the murder victims, they will have to come up from the grave to protest what we are not doing. So we have to get out there and fight for those who can no longer fight.
And I invite everybody to go to The Intercept and hear her award-winning podcast. They have more than 1.5 million. They're closing in on 2 million downloads on this podcast. Jeff Cohen, her story, and I bring that up because The Intercept is kind of something that a lot of people listen to. No one reached out to her. She's been featured on Dateline. Just,
yeah.
The Black community, when they hear about this, we're not supporting this. I don't know who they're talking to, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm so disgusted by the national news media because I love journalism, and journalism can really make the world better. But if you're a journalist, you have to pay attention to the grassroots. You have to talk to people that are suffering. You can't just talk to the elites. And Del Marie, I just did a Google search. You're right. There's almost no coverage of Anniversary, Laquan Mcdonald, Rahm Emanuel. The one place I found a great story was commondreams.org, which is a progressive news site that's been all over this story. And, when I think about the wealth, the way this guy has been allowed to fail upward. One of the callers wondered how much did he earn after leaving the Clinton White House before running for Congress. Well, in 30 months, he earned $18 million working for a Wall Street firm out of their Chicago office. $18 million in 30 months. How do we know? When you become a Congress member, you have to file. Now, what did we just learn this week? Well, when you become nominated for an ambassadorship, you have to declare, you have to make the financial records filing. And he received 12, since leaving the Chicago mayor's position from an investment banking firm, Centerview, he's made $12 million in consulting fees. And then he made another several $100,000 for speeches to corporations like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Duke Energy, the petrochemical manufacturers. I mean, his whole career has been, as you guys used to call him, Mayor 1%. He's always been great for the 1%. He hasn't been so good for middle class, working class, and poor people.
Everybody,
I believe also.
Because I got about 30 seconds for you and then a minute for Del Marie so we can get everybody out at 11 o'clock. Pastor Acree?
Yeah, I just think it's just so unfortunate that as important as we are to, and the most dedicated part of the Democratic Party, that we are being sacrificed because they think that Rahm Emanuel has a great political acumen, and they love the fact that he's a great fundraiser for the party and his breadth of political experience. That makes him attractive, but unfortunately, they taken us for granted, and they're siding with him. So I don't know how we can make them pay because they have taken us for granted. Republicans write us off. So how do we deal with this?
Withdraw support.
That's what I'm trying to ponder.
Withdraw support, and don't even ponder that. You can't continue staying in an abusive relationship. You can't do that.
When it's time to support a president, Donald Trump's on the other side. What do we do?
You know what? Let me tell you something. We lived through slavery. You cannot frighten me. Okay, we've been through it all. I'm done. No, I'm not done. I'm done.
You got to vote for one of the candidates.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I can't be frightened. What I will not be is rolled over. Because that is what they continue to use, which is what's gotten us in this jam.
Absolutely.
We're getting disrespected. Are you kidding me? What is this? There's no appreciable difference. You got 30 seconds. And we're going to stay on the air, everybody. Not on the air. We're going to be on the Santita Jackson and Friends page and the YouTube channel, Santita Jackson Show. But the last 30 seconds belong to you because you need our support out there today, Del Marie.
So we need you at the news conference today, but at 11 o'clock. But I just want to say that the $18 million that Rahm made was with Bruce Rauner, who was also the worst Republican governor the state of Illinois has ever had. So birds of a feather flock together.
Well, Bach. How about that? Stay right there, everybody, because I want to get some closing thoughts from everybody on this. Anybody at 11 o'clock at 35th. What is this? What is the address?
35th 3510 South Michigan Avenue.
35th in Michigan, everybody. 11 o'clock, and then spread the word, spread the word. 7th anniversary of the Laquan Mcdonald murder. They will hold a vote, a confirmation vote on Rahm Emanuel. You have the power to stop it. Now, you need to have an insult level. You need to have an insult level. If the murder of Laquan McDonald and the cover-up is okay with you, then let it ride. If it's not okay, you need to do something about it. Stay right here. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. We're going to continue this conversation for a few minutes right here on the YouTube channel of the Santita Jackson Show and Santita Jackson and Friends. I love you, everybody. God bless. See, my only point was this: Jeff Cohen and Del Marie Cobb and Pastor Acree. I am not frightened of any of these people. But see, I tend to line up more with my mom than my dad on this. You cannot continue to give people your vote and continue to lift people up who continue to relieve themselves on you, to put it politely.
But what they think the problem is, Santita, and this is the problem of the Democratic Party, and I've had this conversation many, many times with party leaders, is that white Democrats believe that we have nowhere else to go. And so that's why they continue to do what they do and take us for granted, because they believe we have nowhere else to go. And what I keep telling them is, when that is the case, we don't go anywhere.
That's right.
And that's why the Republicans win, because then we don't vote at all. And so this is the first time in my life, because I am pro-politics, I'm pro-media, and I agree with Jeff. This is the first time in my life I have been this disgusted and so, demoralized by both the media and the politics. I cannot believe what's going on, that we would allow this to happen, and nobody gives a damn how we feel.
You know what? I guess I'm not demoralized, because this is all I've seen all my life. I've just seen the unfairness of it all. And,
well, I've seen it too, but this is just, I have too, and I've always love it. But this one really has affected me more than any that I've had in the past.
I can respect.
Same for me.
See, you know what? I guess I expect this from them, because I see what corporatists do, and I just, so for me, I'm like, please, this is more of the same.
But the other thing is, we've only had one black elected official to speak out in the city of Chicago, and that was Jeanette Taylor. Only one black elected official.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. I'm just saying, just given the brand of black elected leadership, and that's the problem, because they're not leaders. We lead our elected officials. That's we have this all twisted up.
We don't lead them because we keep reelecting them, because leading them would mean that we would make sure they don't get reelected if they don't represent us.
With you. We have got it twisted up, Del Marie, because the thing is, we think that there are leaders. We put and then they're the first, the only, or whatever, or one of the few, and we demand nothing of them.
Right.
It's
exactly.
like, what are you doing? If you're not going to if you're not going to sit and do my bidding, then you need to be voted out.
No, we don't need you.
You. In fact, you're taking up space. You got to go. I'm sorry, because that's what I sent you there for. I sent you to do what Mondare is doing, or what Jamal is doing, and what AOC. Yeah. And that's what I voted for. And if you're not going to do that, see, because I've seen what the corporatists and the populists do. I know how Reverend was treated, and you do too. Del Marie, after Reverend won Michigan in 1988.
Oh,
leading Michigan and Washington wanted to see him, and that's all I'm gonna say. And the question was, well, what do you really want? Well, we want to end poverty. We want to do this. They looked at Reverend like he was crazy. Like, wait, are you serious? That's what you? That's a joke, right? No. See, and we've got to stop playing these games with ourselves. The $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill is already a compromise from $6 trillion. Yeah. So what, are you supposed to give away two free years of community college? Is that what you want? Are you supposed to work for your gruel, according to Joe Manchin? Is that what you really want? Because you're not calling. With all due respect, everybody, you have to call. Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman here said it works when you work it. This system works when you work it. We're the ones who have to call.
No, I agree with you.
I mean, how are you going to hold this hearing on the anniversary of this boy's killing? I've never heard of anything so horrible.
I know, and when we were talking about it the other day, I'm saying Rahm Emanuel had every opportunity to say, "Oh no, we can't do it on that day. I don't want to look as though I'm that deaf,
or that cruel."
Right?
No.
Don't of white supremacy in this country, you know.
But it's also just being a mean human being. You just mean.
Oh no, and for him, this is typical Rahm. I mean, this is the kind of callousness. Exactly, this is typical Rahm.
Jeff Cohen, what do you make of all of this? On the boys, oh gosh.
Yeah, I do believe this is a new low. You know, I thought I could not be disgusted more than I've been in recent years, but I never thought I would witness this. And as you guys say, on the 7th anniversary, I mean, Laquan Mcdonald would be 24. And to see the Washington Post and other outlets doing PR for Rahm Emanuel, he's cultivated elite journalists. It's been one of his strong suits. I think they like that he brings them into the room and he swears with. But he's been cultivating the elite journalists since 1992. But I'm blown away that this has happened. I mean, you've got President Biden claiming that he believes Black Lives Matter. You've got Democratic leaders, Black Lives Matter, and then they go and do this. And remember, in the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2020, which 30 Democratic senators co-sponsored, one of the things it stopped, it outlawed, was the suppression of police videos. So either you believe that police videos should not be suppressed, or you believe in Rahm Emanuel, but you can't do both. We're waiting for one of those 30 Democrats in the Senate who sponsored the George Floyd Act to stand up. I mean, Bernie has not stood up. He's fighting other battles. Elizabeth Warren's been silent. Reverend Warnock's been silent. Merkley's been the best from Oregon, and he still hasn't announced that he's going to vote no. But this is really a new level of disgustedness for me with corporate politics, the corporate Democrats, and the corporate media. I'm pulling the hair out of my head. I'm gonna, as soon as we get off, I'm going to write those three journalists who wrote today's Washington Post story, because I was a journalism professor for 10 years. I'm going to tell them that I would teach your story on what not to do after you get out of college.
Well, what should they not have done? What did they do wrong in this Washington Post?
They wrote a whole story for national publication where they made it seem like, yes, there are members of Congress that are opposing Rahm Emanuel, but many African Americans, and they found none on the other side, are supporting Rahm Emanuel. And they mentioned the Urban League being supportive, but they didn't mention the NAACP being opposed, or all these families that are opposed, or Del Marie Cobb, or Santita Jackson, or Reverend Acree. They couldn't somehow find anyone to make the story more complete, and they failed. I would give them an F if they turned this in as a journalism paper in college, because they distorted reality. They accurately quoted these, Reverend Hunter and the letter, but they distorted what reality was.
Del Marie?
Oh, absolutely. Not only that, to headline it and say progressive blacks, these people are not progressive. The majority of them are not progressive. I've been in the trenches for the last 30 years. I've been in the progressive trench. I've almost been in the center of every progressive fight in this city for the last 30 years. And I've not seen one of these people in the trenches with me.
Reverend Acree?
Well, I'm going to say goodbye on that note. I got a meeting I got to get ready for, but I want to thank you guys for your education. I think we need people like you guys just bringing people up to speed. A lot of people are not aware that this is really even going on.
They don't.
Seriously. So
this is the second day that I brought this, Pastor Acree, because when I saw this headlined, Jeff Cohen and Del Marie, I saw it headlined because I've missed Del Marie's letters, and I'm so sorry for that. But I saw it headlined in Common Dreams, and I said, "Wait a minute, I'm about to get on a plane." That's what I called you when I got off the plane, Pastor Acree, and I called I called you just before they told me to shut off my phone, Del Marie. Mm-hmm. I was like, "You wait a minute, on the 7th anniversary, on the 7th anniversary of this child's death? Are you serious?" Mm. Look, this is so wicked. This is not mean, and this is not just mean and cruel. This is wickedness. I mean, just out of respect, Rahm Emanuel could say, we're not going to do it on that day. Can we wait a day or two? You all, I mean,
exactly.
He could have done that, but he has. This is wickedness. It's cruel. This is mean. I'm just not, but I think maybe because of where we are in the history of the world, spiritually and otherwise, this needs to happen. You need to see the corruption in all of these constructs. I don't need to stop to keep telling you about it. You just need to see it. You need to see it. And that's where I was saying, Jeff and Del Marie and Pastor Acree, that I'm not shocked. I mean, my father would take us to editorial board meetings. One of the first ones I attended, my feet didn't even touch the floor. he wanted us to see how this sausage is made. And he would tell us walking into the meeting, Jeff Cohen, Del Marie, Pastor Acree, he would say, now this person is coming for me. Watch. And he would say it just as we'd walk in. I'm 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, yeah. And just as sure as I am a black woman sitting in this seat right now, a human being sitting in this seat, it would be that person, that black person they sent, or this white liberal who'd have the snaking question. Come on, this is the logical. This is this is part of the progression. So I want to thank you for sending us this story from the Washington Post, because it's just disgusting. I mean, as I was reading it, I was, and no one knows about this story. Yes, Jeff Cohen.
Let me give you one thing I noticed when I clicked on the link. In the window, WashingtonPost.com, politics, and then all those words. The link said, "Manual nomination faces roadblocks." But when I clicked on the link, it went to Emanuel touts support among black leaders ahead of confirmation. So, I mean, my view is it's possible these reporters were sent out to write about the roadblocks, but by the time the editors got through with it, or they got the coaching from the editors, it became a different story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's.
I mean, I remember the headlines from the 1980s. What does Jesse want?
Oh.
Exactly.
In other words, anyone else can run for president and want to become president, but he's obviously pulling some trick on us. I told your dad, Santita, that we demanded this meeting with the New York Times leadership. And we met with the publisher, whose name at the time is deceased now, Punch Sulzberger,
yes.
famous publisher. And so we were confronting them. We said, here's how you cover Jesse Jackson. Here's how you cover the others. And, it was an off-the-record meeting. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but, he said to us, well, I've got to be honest with you. Jesse Jackson scares the bejesus out of me. And I looked at the two other people from FAIR who demanded this meeting, and our jaws dropped, because it sort of explained what was happening in the New York Times. From the top down, they were afraid of Jesse Jackson's call for justice. And this is supposed to be your liberal, national daily. And then he sort of, I think he saw our expressions on our face, and and then he goes, well, but David Dinkins, I really like David Dinkins. And it was sort of like, good black, bad black.
Oh, yeah. Because Dave Dinkins, who I loved, he was not Percy Sutton, right?
Right. That's right.
So Percy Sutton, who out of the big four, out of Basil Patterson, Charlie Rangel, and Dave Dinkins, Percy Sutton was the guy. He was the president of the borough of Manhattan, had the most scandal-free administration they'd ever had. He walked out of that administration and could not raise $1 million to buy a little radio station, which became the top radio station in New York and in the United States.
Yep.
And Jeff, you understand that because you've been in the trenches along with us, and you understand that. But many people don't understand that, and that happens every day. The good black people get promoted, and the bad black people, they can just stay wherever the hell they are. Because we want to always promote the good black people because they're the symbol for why can't you be like them? See, they made it.
Yep. That's right.
But I think the good news is this. What we have to do is, what I will say this, Booker T. Washington, he said some things with which I agree. Cast your buckets where you are. You all have this radio you have this radio show. And when we have progressive issues that need to be pulled up, call me. Let's get them on the air. Let's just do it. Because, you just have
absolutely.
we have to go on and build what we've got. Because I don't want to be on the corporate media's dime. I don't want to tell these stories their way. And that's not what I want to do. That is not what people need. Right. Heaven knows I miss Ebony and Jet.
Santita, I've got to get ready for this news conference.
Love you. 11 o'clock. Tell everybody where to meet you.
Okay, 3510 South Michigan Avenue in front of the Chicago Police Department headquarters, and we hope you'll be there.
Oh, look, God bless you. I'm a run.
We know we're competing against the Sky Victory Parade, and this is one of the first basketball victory parades I will not be a part of. But this is far more important than a victory parade.
Not a question. I'm just going to run and see my mom real quick to make sure she is in the mix. And then
Great.
See you. Jeff Cohen, do you want to say anything else? And thank you for this.
No. I'm just, I'm so happy for what you guys are doing. You're fighting the fight. We're going to fight till the very end on this. And I really appreciate all that you've done over the decades.
Well, I appreciate what you've done over the decades. I was just kind of sort of there, but I thank goodness, I will say this, for our parents and their training. I thank them for putting us on the picket lines. I thank God for that. I'm glad that they did that. I'm glad that that's what they did. I'm glad, and I thank them for that. So, and that's what I try to share with everybody every day, just the benefit of some of the things that I've seen, so that we can all move forward together. Because this was not what my parents were just taking me so they could say they took us somewhere. They were trying to teach us some lessons. And then I was supposed to bring them home and share them with you. And that's what we're doing. But let me say to you, Jeff Cohen, for fighting the big fight, the good fight, for decades. When I could get a break and just have a little bit of fun, I just want to thank you for all that you have been doing down through the years. I want to thank you for that.
I appreciate it, and I want to send healing energy to your parents.
Thank you so much. My father's out running around. He's living his best life. Yeah. My mother's a little easier.
So great.
But he is, COVID, does have an effect. But I tell you, when I saw Colin Powell's passing yesterday, and I thought about both my parents having COVID at the same time, and the fact that they were able to walk out of the hospital, all I could do was thank God. That's all I could do.
And Alma Powell has it.
Yes, I know.
But she's apparently doing well.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to run. It's so great what you do. Bye-bye.
Thank you. God bless you. Pastor Acree?
Bless you. Bye-bye.
Everybody, I love you. Please continue to keep this story alive. Continue to keep this story alive. Continue to keep this story alive. The 7th anniversary of the killing of Laquan Mcdonald. Former Mayor Rahm Emanuel could get a promotion. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? They could move this hearing over. And, just really? Some things ought to be unacceptable to you. They really ought to be. And if they're not, well, shame on all of us. We really do. We deserve better, but you have to know that you deserve better. But I love you, everybody. It's been great. Effie Rolfe, Dave Dowling, Kenneth D. I'm sending you all much love. Q, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing, everybody? Love you, love you, love you. Like and share this broadcast. Like and share this broadcast. Like and share. Like and share. Like and share. Sending you much love and many blessings. See you tomorrow morning on the Santita Jackson Show.